to this joint perspective, Google temasuk today that we've seen. It's a very interesting perspective indeed on the internet economy of Southeast Asia and Indonesia in particular. What's the most interesting point that you'd like to share with us?
Look, I think people need to understand that Indonesia is really starting to set itself beyond Southeast Asia now. And I think this is really coming through in the information that we found. So, when you see Indonesia bunched with a bunch of other Southeast Asian countries, in effect, it actually inflates the opportunity across the rest of Southeast Asia. But when we broke out Indonesia itself, in the research, what really became clear to me was Indonesia is really becoming the digital powerhouse of Southeast Asia and is moving beyond any country within Southeast Asia, whether it's around internet users, whether it's around online shoppers, whether it's around startup communities. In all of these areas, we're finding that Indonesia is really starting to punch above its weight.
When we're talking about internet economy that comprises e-commerce, online travel, and online transportation, that 200 million potentially internet economy worth of that much amount of money, what's the biggest chunk of the internet economy, especially in the Indonesian market?
Well, it's actually 200 billion.
Billion?
Yeah, and so we're really excited about that, and of course 81 billion here just in Indonesia alone. And the biggest part of that, right, is going to be e-commerce. So e-commerce is going to make up a huge amount. That and travel, online travel, will make up 80 to 90% of that number. And so we are really seeing the e-commerce piece specifically exploding. And I think there's a number of exciting reasons for Indonesians about why that's happening. And one of the reasons which I feel strongly about is that there are Indonesians who haven't necessarily had access to premium brands or just a big range of different brands in options of products and services that they would want to buy, because simply there aren't big supermarkets or malls where they live. But for a lot of them, they can access the internet. And so to access the internet and to be then able to go online and find a Blibli or a Elevania or a Matahari Mall and have access to all of those brands in an area where you normally wouldn't be able to get them is exciting. And that's actually starting to underpin the huge growth we're seeing in e-commerce now, which is a great thing for people. It's offering them an opportunity they once would not have had.
Well, you've seen Indonesia the past 9 months of your assignment here. What do you think is uniquely Indonesian, and how can Google Indonesia tap into that untapped market?
Yeah, look, I think it's more around how Google can learn from it, to be honest. So what's really unique that I've learned very, very quickly is just how mobile first and mobile only Indonesia is. I mean, even though the penetration of smartphones in Indonesia is just gone over 43%, so it's significant. Of the 100 million internet users in Indonesia, by far the majority of them are on smartphones. And in fact, the ownership of laptop computers, or just computer ownership in Indonesia, is only 15%. And so what we're seeing is, and you ask what's unique, what's unique about Indonesia is that many, many internet users are mobile only. So we used to talk about Indonesia as being a mobile first nation, but really it's becoming a mobile only nation. For a lot of people who come online, there are 3 million people coming into that under 30 bracket every year here. And for a lot of those people, they may never use desktop computers or laptops. It's the mobile device that they're really starting to use as their primary source or only source of access to the internet. And then getting into what can Google learn from that? We're already learning from that. So once we used to build products that were enabling people in a world where the internet was fast and it was everywhere, and it was fast and Wi-Fi, and we build products that would work well in that environment. In Indonesia, that will happen. Over time, we will have faster, more reliable, more accessible, and cheaper internet. But in the meantime, we need to make sure that Google's products work well in the environment they're in. And so there's two ways you can do that. One is make sure you localize as much as possible. Build products in Bahasa Indonesia. Make sure voice search, when you use voice search on any of Google's products, whether it's Gmail or Google Search or any of those, just writing a message to somebody, that's working and it's effective in the language that you know and love. You shouldn't have to change languages to use Google.
Well, we've talked about the potentials, all the exciting points that we saw in your presentation, but we also talk about the challenges.
Absolutely.
Of all the 5 challenges, you mentioned about the talents, the infrastructure, both the internet infrastructure and logistic infrastructure, payment security and consumer trust. Which point do you think is the most urgent, that needs attention by both Indonesian government and Indonesian consumers?
Skills. Absolutely, hands down, it's skills. And it's skills right across the entire plethora and continuum of internet-based requirements. And so that ranges from people who can literally understand how to build a website, all the way through to network engineers who can revolutionize the ability to store huge amount of data for a Matahari Mall or a Gojek. Those sorts of skill sets we really need to make sure that we invest in, and I think we're already doing it. There is definitely life in the thinking in Indonesia around let's make this happen, but I think we need to do it on a bigger scale. Yeah.
So unlocking the $200 billion US dollar potential by 2025, that is all very exciting. We do hope that your predictions and your projections come to fruition in the future. Thank you so much, Tony Kisgen, Managing Director of Google Indonesia, for joining us in CNN Indonesia.
Thank you.